I'm glad that you guys found my video again. And welcome back to the channel Whispers of Chronoria. My name's Nick. Me and Amy had been married and we were living happily. Things were going exactly as they are supposed to be until I woke up that morning with a strange heaviness behind my ribs. Not dread, not fear. Something worse. A quiet pressure, like the air had thickened without explanation. I padded downstairs, half asleep, expecting the familiar. Amy sipping coffee, reading something she wouldn't show me yet, the kitchen humming with her controlled order. Instead, silence, not the peaceful kind, the wrong kind. The kind that makes you pause mid-step and listen to your own breathing. Pay me no answer. The living room looked wrong. Not messy, not chaotic, wrong. Like someone had recreated the room from memory but missed a few important details. Then I saw it. The glass coffee table, shattered, glittering across the floor like frozen stars. A jolt went through me, the kind that shakes your spine before your brain understands why. Something had happened here, something violent. I felt my heartbeat kick, thudding hard. I stepped closer, then stopped cold. The front door was wide open. A soft breeze drifted in, carrying the faintest echo of something I couldn't name. A warning, a taunt, a void. In that moment I felt something collapse inside me. Not panic yet, but a cold instinct whispering, Amy is gone. And somehow, I already knew this wasn't an accident. By noon, the police turned my home into a crime scene. Red and blue lights splashed across my walls, coloring everything with guilt. Detective Rhonda Boney studied me the way a surgeon studies a tomb clinical patient, already mapping out where to cut. Nick, when did you last see your wife? Her voice was soft, but her eyes were steel traps. And the terrible truth was, I hesitated. I had to think. I had to remember. That hesitation would follow me like a curse. Then they found the envelope, taped under the coffee table, ironically neat in the middle of that violent scene. Clue 1. Amy's handwriting. Amy's tradition. Our anniversary scavenger hunt. Except this time, the clue felt like a message she never intended for me to enjoy. Each clue dragged me through our memories, but they weren't memories I had cherished. They were ones Amy had catalogued, polished, ranked, and I had forgotten, misplaced, or never fully appreciated. She remembered everything. I remembered enough to get by. The deeper I went into the clues, the more I felt it. The sense that she was leading me somewhere, not toward romance, toward revelation, toward guilt, toward ruin. Every word in those notes felt sharpened, every location chosen with intention, every memory twisted with accusation. And the eyes around me, detectives, neighbors, reporters, grew colder. By evening, they weren't looking at me like a grieving husband. They were looking at me like a monster waiting to be confirmed. And then the diary appeared. Pages soaked in fear. Entries dripping with dread. Amy writing about me like she was describing a stranger wearing my face. He frightens me. I don't know who he is anymore. I feel unsafe. And the final line, written like a prophecy scratched into stone. This man may kill me. I wanted to rip the pages out, burn the book, scream that it wasn't true. But every room I entered now felt filled with 1,000 silent judges. and I could feel the story forming around me, a story I never wrote, but one that everyone else was ready to believe. The days after Amy disappeared felt like I was drifting inside a cage that kept shrinking, inch by inch, breath by breath. Every morning I woke up hoping to hear her voice float from the kitchen, telling me I left the kettle on again, or that I mispronounced some obscure writer's name. Anything, even one of our old arguments, would have been a blessing. But there was nothing, just the suffocating quiet of a house that wasn't mine anymore. The police had taken it. The media had invaded it. The world had claimed it. Everyone kept replaying the same loop around me. My timeline, my actions, my expressions, my inconsistencies. Every step I took echoed with accusation. The worst part. My own sister, Go, started looking at me differently. Not with fear, but with a quiet worry that cut deeper. "Just tell me if there's something I don't know," she'd whisper. "I can take it. Just don't let me get blindsided." I hated that. I hated that she even had to ask. But in this nightmare, doubt wasn't a poison from the outside. Doubt was contagious. Even I wasn't immune to it. Sometimes I'd stare at myself in the mirror for too long, look at the set of my jaw, the tired eyes, the tension in my shoulders, and I'd think, is this what a guilty man looks like? Is this what Amy wanted people to see? Because the story being built around me was too precise, too orchestrated, too perfect. The diary entries leaked to the media, and suddenly the whole world was reading about the husband who shoved his wife, screamed at her, frightened her, cornered her, controlled her. I didn't know this version of myself, but the world loved him. The world needed him. The police found Amy's blood in the kitchen. Not a drop of lot. The kind of blood you don't walk away from. When they told me that something inside me went cold, not because I believed she was dead, but because I realized how much someone wanted me to believe it. Amy wasn't just writing a story. She was writing my ending. And then came the next blow, the kind that made my stomach twist into a fist. They found her, and by her, I mean Andy. I should have told the police about the affair from the start. I know that. I can say it now, because the guilt swells in my chest like a bruise. But when your entire life is collapsing, you cling to any scrap of stability, any lie that keeps you standing. I didn't want the world to know I'd been unfaithful. I didn't want Go to know. I didn't want Amy's parents, who already despised me, to have one more reason to burn me alive in their public speeches. But affairs don't stay buried in tragedies like this. They rise to the surface like oil, slick and undeniable. The detectives didn't yell when they found out. That made it worse. They just looked at each other with that expression, the one that says, "There it is," the motive. And I felt the leash tighten, inches from my throat now. Andy cried when the media caught us on video. She tried to reach out for me. I stepped back, because touching her felt like touching a detonator wired to my own spine. Everyone saw it on TV, the younger mistress crying, the guilty husband looking away. And that image dug the grave deeper. The town turned against me. The country turned against me. Even strangers online wanted my blood. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. And at night, alone, in the dark, I whispered the question I'd been avoiding. "Are you doing this, Amy? Are you watching me burn?" And the silence felt like a yes. The day the police confronted me with the final set of clues, I felt something inside me break. The last clue of Amy's treasure hunt didn't lead to a sweet memory. It didn't lead to something sentimental. It led to our woodshed, where she stored everything. Stacks of expensive items she claimed I bought. Credit card charges I had never made. Pings purchased in my name. A living museum of my supposed deceit. A shrine of guilt. A trap so detailed, so methodical, it bordered on admiration. When the detectives opened the shed, their flashlights landed on the objects, row after row, perfectly arranged like a courtroom presentation. And there, in the mix of shock and horror, something inside me suddenly shifted. Not fear, not panic. Something colder, sharper, understanding. Amy had done this. Amy had crafted this entire nightmare. And I realized the truth. My wife was not dead. My wife was not kidnapped. My wife was out there, alive, pulling the strings of a story designed to bury me. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt rage. Real, visceral, electric rage. If she wanted to destroy me, she was doing a damn good job. But what Amy didn't realize, what she couldn't anticipate, was that I wasn't going to die quietly. If the world wanted a villain, I would give them something else instead. Not innocence. Not guilt. War. A war against the ghost of the woman I married. A war against the story she wrote. A war against the destiny she thought she could force-feed me. As the world screamed for my arrest, as detectives circled me like vultures, I whispered a single promise into the dark. I'm coming for you, Amy. And I will rewrite the ending. When the media decided to crucify me, they didn't waste a second. They dragged my face across every screen in America. The lying husband, the cheater, the monster behind the smile. The thing is, they weren't entirely wrong about the smile. Because once I understood that Amy had set me up, that she had orchestrated every beat of this nightmare with surgeon-level precision, I felt something twist inside me, something I hadn't expected, a spark of defiance, of adrenaline, of survival. If Amy wanted me terrified, sobbing, apologizing, she miscalculated. Fear turned into clarity. Clarity turned into focus. And for the first time since she vanished, I felt alive. So yes, I smiled. Not because I was guilty, not because I was heartless, but because I finally understood her game. And because now I could play too. Of course, America didn't know that. America saw a sociopath grinning at a candlelight vigil. They saw a man posing with volunteers. They saw a husband who didn't act right. But no one asked why. I smiled. No one wondered what I had discovered between those police lines and media tents. They didn't see the realization blooming behind my eyes. Amy was alive, and this was a performance, a damn masterpiece. And if she wanted a villain, she was about to meet the only man capable of outwitting her. Once the shock dissolved and the rage sharpened, I went hunting. Not for Amy's body, she didn't leave one, but for the inconsistencies in her plan. Amy's genius was detail. Her weakness was also detail. The more perfect the story, the more strain around the seams. One by one, I started seeing those seams. The diary written for an audience, too polished, too curated, fear-crafted, not felt. The blood too much for an accident, too little for a murder. A staged stain. The woodshed, a shrine of accusation, so obvious it bordered on parody. Why keep the items? Why arrange them? No killer frames himself that beautifully, unless the killer wants to frame someone else. And then there was the pregnancy test, positive, found in the trash, shown to detectives, held up as proof of motive. Except here's the thing. Amy and I weren't trying. Amy and I hadn't been intimate in a long, long time. So unless God himself performed a miracle, that test meant nothing. Or everything. A detail too convenient. Too emotional. Too devastating. A twist planted like a seed KNEW, investigators would water. And I thought, yes, this is her. This is Amy, the woman who would burn down a life just to watch the ashes float perfectly. That was the day I stopped seeing myself as a victim and started seeing myself as an opponent. The turning point came when I realized what Amy wanted most. She wanted America to fall in love with her absence. She wanted America to hate me so much the hatred became holy. She wanted a narrative where she was the delicate, brilliant, misunderstood wife. And I was the brutish, careless man who couldn't appreciate perfection. She wanted martyrdom. She wanted villainy. She wanted revenge, so theatrical it would echo for decades. But there was something she didn't anticipate. I know her better than anyone else in the world. Better than her parents who idolized her. Better than her friends who feared her. Better than the detectives who never met the real Amy. Better than America, who saw her only through headlines. I know the woman behind the brilliance. I know the acidity beneath her sweetness. I know the precision behind her emotions. And I knew one thing Amy couldn't resist: attention. If she was watching, and she was watching, she would see everything. Every press conference, every sigh, every stumble, every tear. So I decided to weaponize myself, be the Nick she expected, perform the version of me she hoped to destroy, build a narrative of my own, one subtle enough to slip under her skin, a talk show appearance, a confession of mistakes, not crimes, but weaknesses, regret, honesty, charm, vulnerability, not for the world, for her. I wanted Amy to see me and think, no, he doesn't get to do that. He doesn't get to be likable. He doesn't get to grow. He doesn't get to be admired. I wanted her to break her own script, because if Amy breaks her script, I win. And as the cameras flashed and America reconsidered their hatred, I felt something electric crackle through me. A shift, a tilt, a disturbance in the story. For the first time since she disappeared, it felt like Amy wasn't the only one writing anymore. I whispered in my head, almost like a prayer to the ghost of the woman I married. Come home, Amy. Come home and see what you created. Come home and face the ending you didn't plan for. And somewhere out there, in a motel, in a cabin, in a stranger's house, in the quiet corners of her brilliance, I knew Amy heard me, and I knew Amy felt something she wasn't used to feeling. Pressure. Real, undeniable pressure. Because for the first time in her life, her story was slipping out of her hands.
My name is Amy Elliott Dunne, and if you're hearing this, then everything I set in motion is already alive and moving, like a machine with its gears oiled by fear, love, and betrayal. I was raised to be unforgettable, the living muse behind Amazing Amy, the perfect girl in the perfect stories. But perfection is a costume, and beneath it, I've always been something else, something sharper, something that refuses to be erased. Nick used to see me. Really see me? In the early years, he treated me like gravity, the center of his orbit, the star he couldn't stop reaching for. But love fades when people grow tired of the roles they promised to play. He drifted, I hardened. And the moment he stopped looking at me with wonder, I started planning for the day he'd look at me with fear. When the world learned I was missing. Nick held my diary in trembling hands, pages that painted him as selfish, cruel, dangerous. Pages that made detectives lean closer, reporters whisper louder. He knew the trap closing around him wasn't just suspicion, it was precision. A story someone wanted the world to believe. And that someone was me. Nick wandered through the house that felt staged, curated, arranged like a museum exhibit of marital decay. He opened a drawer and found the bundle of my missing items. Credit cards, IDs, receipts, all hidden where only he could be blamed. In that moment, he realized something terrifying. He wasn't just accused. He was being crafted into the villain of my disappearance. Meanwhile, I sat in a dim motel room, reshaping myself into someone unremarkable. A new haircut, new clothes, a new version of Amy. I watched the news replay Nick's interviews, watched the country sharpen their claws on his name. I had wanted him to suffer. But when I saw his eyes confused, cornered, burning with something like defiance, I realized Nick wasn't collapsing. He was waking up. Then everything exploded. Reporters outside his house multiplied, hungry for blood. And when the question came, "Did you have an affair?" my heartbeat slowed because I knew exactly what would follow. She stepped forward. My replacement, younger, prettier, terrified. The mistress he thought could stay hidden. In that moment, the media didn't just turn against him, they declared war. And yet, behind the motel curtains, I felt a shift inside myself. Watching him fight, watching him stumble, watching him change felt like someone tugging on a thread I thought I had cut. Because deep down, whether I hated it or not, Nick was the one person who had ever truly known me. Nick, meanwhile, tried to claw back control by appearing on television. He practiced his words, his charm, the smirk he hadn't shown in years. He looked into the camera with those steady eyes and apologized with a sincerity that made even me lean forward. The world melted. Women forgave him. Men believed him. And somewhere, inside the anger I'd nurtured for months, a seed of something dangerous sprouted again. The memory of the man I once loved. But hidden in that cheap motel, danger lurked closer to me than to Nick. A couple staying nearby watched my movements. They saw my cash, my careful routines. And one night they robbed me violent, merciless, stripping away every dollar I had. My plan, my structure, my calm shattered. I was left penniless, invisible in the worst possible way. Desperation drives people back to old ghosts, and I found one, Desi Collings. A man whose love for me was obsessive, suffocating, eternal in a way that felt like a prison disguised as a promise. He took me in, sheltered me, kept me safe, but at a price. Cameras everywhere, locked doors. His hand on my back a little too long, his voice a little too soft. Love that felt like it wanted to swallow me whole. While I lived in Desi's gilded cage, Nick pieced together the truth. He found traces of the plan I'd built, the forged diary entries, the staged scenes, the planted evidence. He understood me better than anyone else could have. And when he went on national TV, he didn't plead innocence. He spoke to me. Every word was a message. Every apology was a signal. Every look was a reminder of the game, only we knew how to play. And I couldn't look away. The final straw came one night as I lay in Desi's house, watching Nick's interview again. He smiled that careful, meaningful smile. The one he only ever used when he was manipulating, seducing, outmaneuvering. "You're perfect," he said to the camera. "You always were." And for the first time since vanishing, I felt myself snap back into place, like a bone aligning itself with the truth. Nick wanted me back. Nick needed me back. And suddenly, I wanted to be back. But Desi would never let me go. So I did what I always do. I rewrote the story. I turned fear into fuel. I turned captivity into motive. I turned Desi into the monster the world needed. And when I returned home, bloodied, trembling, wrapped in the lie I crafted, Nick held me in his arms before the cameras, before the police, before the country. His grip was too tight. Mine was tighter. We both understood the truth behind the performance. We were bound now, by lies, by survival. By the story we created together, a story too dark to escape, and somewhere deep inside him, inside me, We knew that this wasn't a reunion. It was a reset. A restart of the most twisted love story ever told.